Hello, welcome to this astrological podcast. Uh, I have written several books on astrology, several short books, and they're largely under the title of my astrological musings beside a fireplace. And I do a lot of astrological consulting, I do a lot of astrological thinking, but um, I have a podcast called Freedom of Choice or Predestination, where I tackle the fact of where does human free will and human choice come into this astrological thinking? Okay. So you might want to listen to that podcast before you actually delve into any of my astrological musings. Now, my musings are basically my experiences and my understandings as I have traversed the field of astrology for the last 30 years. And primarily, uh, my ventures into astrological thinking really have nothing to do with planets and constellations and things like that. No, the underlying motivation behind astrological thinking for me is the perception and ultimate understanding of human awareness, self awareness. What does it mean? What is its structure? What are its foundational principles? Where does it emerge from? And why does astrology work? Why is it possible to, what is this synchronicity that exists between human behavior, human personality, and astrological thinking? So there are podcasts which I've recorded which deal with these questions. In this particular podcast, I'm not going to go into any of that. I just want to read um, uh, a few chapters from the book, my astrological musings. Now, the astrological musings so far come in three parts, and these are just random topics that I just select and give a dissertation on because I want to expound thinking in that area. Now, it's not really important what you know whether it's right or wrong, true or not. These are just my perspectives and my understandings, and that's why I'm sharing them. And my hope is that they will be able to enable, or they enable someone out there who's listening to them better perceive themselves. Because at the end of the day, stars, planets, they mean nothing. The stars do not compel, the planets do not make you do anything. As an individual, you are limited by design from being able to perceive the unity of reality, the unity of existence. Okay? So that limitation enforces free will within a human being because now a human being can choose not to follow their programming. As far as I'm concerned, right now it is only a human being that can do this. And the instrument of that function is what we call self awareness. Okay? The more we come to understand the unity of and the totality of experience and reality and the unity of God, the less choice we'll be able to see. Because the truth about the nature of existence is that there is no choice. There is absolutely there's no choice in God. Once you can perceive the unity of God, then all choice melts away into the background because all you can see is God. Everything is God. Every direction, every possibility, every dimension of experience. So that's about that. Now, in this podcast, I hope it's short. I want to talk about the astrology of personal financial wealth. And this is something that is very important to a lot of people because everybody wakes up in the morning and they go about their business trying to make some money. Because the world as it is defined today has been characterized by money. Money is now a measure of transaction and how we relate with each other and how much access we have to the utility of it or the fullness of human experience. I mean, it wasn't always like this. I believe that even though there has been some form of money between people since human self-awareness became what it is today, but these have always taken various forms. But at no time in history, in the history of humanity, has money become as important and as prevalent as it is today in the categorization of human experience. So the astrology of personal financial wealth is quite an important area for a lot of people. You know, you need money to live. Money, at the end of the day, is a kind of permission. It is the right to be able to buy and sell. It is the ability to negotiate personal relationships, because right now it basically is intertwined with almost all 12 areas of human experience. And that brings me to a very important point. Some people think that there are money houses or money planets or money things like that. Yes, in a sense, there is. And that's one of the things I'm going to talk about in the astrology of personal financial wealth. But the reality is that every area of human experience can be monetized. Wealth can come from any area. Now, the fact that it can do that doesn't mean that there are not more preferential areas based on the reality we have today, where it is easier to make a buck, or where you are more predisposed to make money. Because what is money? Money is something that people give you. Money is the acceptance from money is acceptance from an authority figure or an authority institution. If you don't have money, then it simply means that the institution that is behind the creation of money has placed no value on your contribution to society. That's what it really means. There are people that have been ostracized from society. They haven't been told. They just don't have any money. Nobody gives them any money. They don't get jobs. They don't get contracts. They have been cut off from the ability to buy and sell. So when I hear people talk about uh, uh, things like that today, especially in the times that we are now, I just laugh. I wonder where these people have been since forever, because the ability to buy and sell has been something that has been weaponized for a really, really, really long time. There's nothing unique about it. And that is why monetary systems are backed by institutions. These institutions are backed by authority figures. And usually all these authority figures are groups, associations of people who come together to set up these institutions. And they use these institutions to pursue their agendas or whatever their ambitions are. And if you don't fit, or if you are contrary to those ambitions, they just lock you out of the monetary system. This is not something that's been new. It's something that's been going on since money was created. And that's why you can't sit in your own house today and print your own money, because you're not an institution. You're not an authority figure. But if you were, you could. That's really what it is. Now I'm just going to read the astrology of personal financial. Now these musings, my astrological musings, come in three parts: part one, part two, and part three. So far, that is. And the idea is that they are a collection of articles I have written over the years, which contain some of my astrological insights. Now, the three musings, the three parts, are actually for sale on Amazon. But as part of my PR campaign, I'm just going to release a few podcasts containing uh, some of the articles from the musings. Just to generate a typical amount of interest. And why am I doing this? It is for the same reason that you go to work every day. I want people reading my musings. If they pay me some money for that, that's not a bad deal. It's actually fair. If the musings can help them in the sense that it helps them clarify who they are, how they function, and help them to better orient themselves towards their root desires and their root motivations. Because at the end of the day, when you're trying to do something in life, or you're trying to implement your ambition or pursue your drive, and you can't seem to do this, it's only because it hasn't been properly clarified. You do not know how. You do not understand how, and you cannot see how. And as long as that is not the case, then you cannot bring it down as a physical manifestation. So, the point of the musings and the entire point of astrological consulting or astrological delineation or astrological knowledge is to understand how and possibly why. And with that experience, you now realize the nature of your choices. In fact, choice disappears because you know who you are, you know what to do, and you know how to do it. Then no need banging your head against the wall at a time when things are not supposed to open up in that direction. You have knowledge, you have self-knowledge, and then you have wisdom. That's the whole point. Now, astrology is not about predicting when you're going to win the lottery or when you're going to get married. No, if you understand the astrological principles or the drivers and the root desires that govern yourself, then you know when you will get married, because you know what you're looking for in a marriage partner, because you know who you are. You know when you're going to make money, because you know what money means to you. You understand it. You understand your gifts. You understand the areas where you're going to struggle. And that self-knowledge is gold. It's literally gold. It is the philosopher's stone. It is the gold. So, moving on. The astrology of personal financial wealth. A great many astrological inquiries revolve around love and money. People ask about when and how they will find love. And they also want to know if they will be wealthy or famous. Around these two areas of inquiry, astrologers have responded by developing numerous examples of placements and their aspects, some of which have been culled from researching the astrological natal charts of either very famous people, very wealthy people, or people who have publicly enjoyed long and successful relationships with their partners. On this manner of approach, I have nothing further to say regarding the veracity or not of these techniques. I will not judge or critique these methods. As is usually my style, I prefer a derivation of core meaning from astrological first principles. In this article, I will focus on the natal astrology of financial wealth by investigating the psychological origins of such wealth. What do I mean by the psychological origins of financial wealth? Well, it is one of the underlying, often unspoken tenets of astrology that an individual's consciousness is somehow responsible for the structure of their external reality. For this reason, I will dive into the psychological archetype of what it means to make money and keep it. Acquiring and amassing money is a character trait, irrespective of what anyone thinks or may tell you about this, and it is my conjecture that cascades of character traits lead to destiny. The ability to earn or make money is directly linked to the ability to know just how to earn or make money from and through others. This emphasis on others immediately implies the quality of the astrological descendant. Making money is a social function, period. Opportunities for making money require insight, detailed understanding, the ability to plan, patience, perseverance, luck, social contacts, loyalty, trustworthiness, discipline, and sometimes ruthlessness. In today's modern society, power and influence usually derive from an ability to consistently amass money over a considerable period of time. One other crucial character trait that's associated with amassing wealth is the ability to restrict the outflow of money earned. No matter how much money is earned, your net worth will never improve financially if this money is released as quickly as it is earned. The ability to restrict the outflow of money is called prudence, and it is also a very important character trait. Now, I will attach astrological implications to all the character traits mentioned above. Knowing and understanding the value of money is a mercurial talent. Mercury is the astrological planet associated with making money and amassing financial wealth. Commentary. Sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? I will explain. Mercury's placements and aspects within a natal chart determine the native's potential for financial wealth. However, Mercury by itself is really just useless. Mercury must be associated with placements and aspects which broaden its scope of understanding, helping it to cultivate patience and perseverance, helping it to build reliable social contacts, helping it to pass itself off as trustworthy, giving it enough depth to plan and organize effectively, and giving it the objectivity to be rational in its decision-making regarding money-making. Mercury acquires these additional attributes from its placement and aspects. Since Mercury is never far from the Sun, its major function is to convey the inherent ego consciousness of the Sun to the outside world. Mercury essentially translates into how the solar ego reaches out into the world. Without Mercury, nobody can comprehend who you are, and if nobody knows who you are, you can't make money. The first step to releasing financial prosperity inherent within every natal chart involves understanding the fact that every natal chart prescribes how best a native can earn money to support their life's mission and goals. Admittedly, not everyone will be super wealthy because deep down, not everyone wants that sort of financial wealth. The ones who really do usually end up getting it. Dreaming of a fabulous lifestyle does not translate into ambition for wealth. Usually, people who end up super wealthy do not start off with dreams of lavishly spending money. Such dreams are indications that this financial wealth is currently beyond the native's means and reach. Natives who end up super wealthy usually start off trying to perfect some type of function. Once done, they perfect how to translate that function into tangibility and usefulness in the real physical world. Such motivations usually start off as musings of a developing ego, which we call ambition. It is this inherent ambition within the ego that Mercury is charged with deploying into the world. Mercury is an expression of this creative ego, and the ego is the source of the creative impulse which we call ambition. The journey to financial wealth within the chart of a native is prescribed within the placements and aspects of Mercury as it relates to its sun. Astrological signs are modules of consciousness, while house positions are specific areas of human activity where these modules make their greatest impact in the fulfillment of the life plan of the native. Mercury in an earth sign prescribes a practical mentality dealing with the everyday physical dictates of life. Mercury in water signs prescribe an emotional reaction, which usually helps the native navigate interpersonal relationships better. Mercury in fire signs spark the native's creative talents with inspiration, helping the native tap into their ego consciousness in a more direct way. Such placements imply very strong ambitions in the native. Mercury in earth signs prescribe an intellectual capacity within the native, which allows them outthink the competition. Quick thinking, wit, and communicative style are the aptitude of choice for these natives in the pursuit of financial wealth. If astrological signs are active masculine impulses, then astrological houses are receptive feminine containers. As such, houses are specific areas of human activity which require the active impulse coming from the signs. For example, Mercury in a fire sign on the cusp of a water house implies that inspirational, positive, and idealistic intellect must be applied to understudied vagaries of human emotions as they apply to interpersonal relationships. Mercury in the fire signs becomes the navigational tool for forging and cementing the interpersonal emotional reactions expected by the water house. Since houses are stationary in the natal chart, houses carry the overriding importance because the requirements of a house do not change, irrespective of the sign which sits on the cusp of the house. A good example is the fact that the requirement of the astrological descendant, which is the seventh house, will always be social air, irrespective of the sign which sits on its cusp. It is the manner of approaching this social air which the sign on the cusp prescribes. Mercury in good aspect to Mars, for instance, enables combative drive, mental directness, and mental assertiveness in the pursuit of wealth. Mercury here says, be mentally combative and make money. Strained aspects imply that these qualities will be learned after experiencing their initial lack. Mercury in good aspect to Jupiter boosts the social currency of the intellect and makes it open to new social contacts. Luck with social contacts and a very wide but often scatterbrained horizon for learning new concepts. Mercury here says, expand your thinking and make money. Strained aspects imply that these qualities will be learned after experiencing their initial lack. Mercury in good aspect to Saturn is a major benefit. It stabilizes the intellect and deepens it considerably, giving it the ability to rationalize in a logical and coherent manner. It also gives it the ability to persevere towards accomplishing any objective, while cultivating the character trait of prudence. Mercury here says, constrain your thinking and make money. Strained aspects also imply that these qualities will be learned after experiencing their initial lack. Now, Mercury in good aspect to Uranus, for instance, implies an additional manner of knowing beyond the recognized senses. It describes and prescribes the intuitive faculty as an important part of the intellectual repository. It enables the native to envision far-reaching possibilities beyond the visible horizon, which is exactly the type of intellectual quality needed for visionary financial investment making. Mercury here says, be a visionary and make money. Mercury in good aspect to Neptune implies trusting in the unknown and purely speculative. It entices Mercury to let go of its inwired association to the sun's ego. It calls for the dismantling of preconceived notions, barriers, and boundaries during thinking. It suggests that this letting go into a dreamlike mental state is a requirement for fulfilling the objectives of financial wealth within the native chart. Mercury here says, let go of all you think you know and make money. Strained aspects imply that these qualities will be learned after experiencing the initial lack. Mercury in good aspect to Pluto implies the ruthless intellectual search for self-truth. It suggests that the native must walk the path of self-truth no matter where this path leads and no matter the consequences. It is really the call to ruthless intellectual behavior, at least as seen from outside the native's perspective. Mercury here says, pursue self-truth relentlessly and make money. Of course, strained aspects imply that these qualities will also be learned after experiencing their initial lack. Mercury in good aspect to Chiron implies the need to express repressions of the ego in ways which release such repressions from the psyche. Mercury here says, heal the ego and make money. I didn't delineate Mercury to Venus because it's a very superficial relationship. Mercury is always too close to the sun. So Mercury in aspect to Venus is not something that really is important astrologically, you see. Anyway, but when Mercury is in good aspect to Venus, then it means that money making through the appreciation of beauty or through the pursuit of pleasure, because Venus represents a certain type of pleasure seeking activity revolving around, or pleasure seeking activity around which the sense of values, self worth is built. So money usually comes from the perception of self worth. Moving on. Sometimes a native chart will contain many of these aspects simultaneously and often in contradiction. In some cases, prominence should be judged by aspect strength. Other times, stellium conjunctions may make the same aspects to Mercury in a chart. These stelliums should be interpreted as a single meaning before referencing the aspect to Mercury. Mercury in the first quadrant of a natal chart usually indicates money made from self-talent. Now, commentary. The natal chart is divided into 4 quadrants, each made up of 3 houses. Okay, so 12 houses. So the first quadrant would be the first house, the second house, and the third house. The second quadrant would be the 4th house, the 5th, and the 6th, and so on and so forth. So Mercury in the first quadrant of a natal chart usually indicates money made from self-talent, while Mercury in the second quadrant usually indicates money made from family connections. Mercury in the third quadrant often indicates money from personal individual connections, while money in the fourth quadrant usually indicates money made from non-personal, non-individual connections. Even though for legal reasons, no one should take this article as a personal financial advisory comment from me, astrologers will do well to re-examine the role of Mercury in a native chart when considering questions surrounding personal financial wealth potential. Financial failure is usually a failure to deploy mercurial abilities lying hidden and latent within a natal chart, or such failures derive from the continuous abuse of these mercurial aptitudes as described above over time. Financial failure is usually evident in the social atmosphere surrounding the native. So a surefire way of healing financial failure in the life of a native is to insist on the removal of the often self-imposed isolation of the ego away from its astrologically prescribed social atmosphere. Now, that's the end of the article. Now, I know a lot of astrologers often relate Venus, the second house, and Jupiter as the greater benefic to financial wealth. Now, Venus, today, Venus literally means a sense of self-worth, self-value, because the way we form our self-values today is linked to our material values. So Venus, at its most basic point, indicates pleasure through the senses. And it is how we understand pleasure through our senses, the kind of stimuli we receive through our senses. That is what we use to form perception of the world. And the assessment of the world which we are making is of a Venusian quality. Because we either like something, it makes us feel better, or we don't like it, it doesn't make us feel better. It is around these concepts that we form our sense of values. But they emanate from our sense of material values. Because Aries is the sense of being just for the sake of the joy that comes from just being a being. But Aries has not evolved into anything. It is a basic, very, very basic way of existence. It is the first type of existence in the sense that it hasn't evolved anything. It doesn't even know that it is attached to a body. So it is an intrinsic joy that just comes from being alive. Now in Taurus, which comes after Aries, that sense of being is attached to a body. Okay, and there are implications for this because that body now becomes a qualifying criteria for the excitement which Aries would normally feel. And the same dynamic is set up between the first and the second houses. It's just that the houses are now receptive containers rather than active impulses. So planets in the houses are waiting to receive something. They're waiting for impulse. That's why when you have a planet in a house, that planet is activated by transit because it's waiting for something. And once the criteria is set, once the context, or once whatever it is prescribed within the natal chart, once those conditions are met, the planet is activated as a personality subtype within the individual. You see? So the signs are the context of the houses. The signs provide the active impulse that triggers the planet in the house. And a transit really comes and just activates the whole shebang. But usually because the context is not just the context is a much wider context. It's not just a transit. You also have the solar arc directions, and you can have an arc from any of the planets. But these are the containers that prescribe the conditions that ultimately manifest in the sense that the transit triggers them, and then you have a cascade of events. Because what this is not happening out there. This is happening deep inside you. The planets are just, and the stars and whatever, they're just signs. You understand? They're signs. And the reason for that, I don't want to go into all that, but I explained all of that in the podcast. Because the entire processes and physical processes that exist in the universe, they are represented as biological processes within the human being, especially as it relates to the endocrine system of the human being. You are your hormones. You are the hormones flowing through your body. The chemical reactions taking place, the cyclical biological reactions, that's who you are. They determine whether you feel good or whether you feel bad. And science has learned how to hack these processes. But it doesn't mean that these processes are represented in the physical body, and they are controlled by your thalamus and your hypothalamus and your brain. When you go into the study of those brain sections, you will see that that's the universe is literally represented in those things, the dynamisms, and that's why astrology works. I've made so many podcasts. You can find these teachings in all the podcasts I have made, because it ties back into the origin of what a human being really is and where we come from. Okay. Now, most astrologers would easily ascribe wealth creation or money making to Venus and the second house. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying that in today's reality, the way that today's reality is structured, Mercury governs financial wealth. I mean, Venus can indicate if you're feeling good enough to be able to receive something. Maybe you need to feel good to be able to receive and accept a gift or a blessing without feeling as if you don't deserve it. But the fact that you receive something doesn't mean you can keep it. It doesn't mean that you feel a sense of control in the money that you've been able to generate. Mercury is your intellect. And it's funny because the Greeks associated Mercury to commerce. There was no commerce that, he was literally the archetype for commercial thinking. He was quick-minded, very flighty, and a little bit of a trickster, you see. But it was his speed of thought that defined the archetype, the speed of thought. And what this today, to make money in the world today, I mean, look, technologies are obsolete in 3 months. So there's a rapid evolution in the speed of thought, in what we call markets today. So you need to look at your chart again, look at your position of Mercury, look at the aspects, and then listen to this podcast and begin to delineate. Maybe there's something there that you can release, or you can develop a new perspective that empowers you. And if you feel like you need a personal astrological consultation, then I am available, but I'm not cheap. I don't do the cookbook or textbook kind of astrological consulting, because I believe that the only astrological consulting a human being needs is once. Only one. And if you are not released after one astrological consulting, then it hasn't really hit the mark. Because you still have questions about yourself. You're not released yet. Okay? So I'm not cheap. I don't want to be cheap. Not because I'm greedy or something. No. It's the way we attach value to things these days. People don't attach value to things that are very common. Things that are everywhere. We attach value by a measure of difficulty. So if you cannot strain yourself to come to a particular realization that releases you, then how well do you value that? That's why people go consult astrologers every month. Consult. As far as I'm concerned, this is not normal behavior. Because the idea is self-empowerment. You need to run your own life. Or at least you need to feel that way until a full insight is developed. And then you understand the nature of the Neptunian influences, where you realize that you're not really in control of anything, but then you're not struggling against it. You have now understood to a very deep level where you now let go and let God. There is no more conflict within you. People who have experienced this experiences as a type of flow. It's peace. Okay, that's about it. If you have enjoyed this, spread it, share it, and let others know what you found. And if for any reason you feel like talking to an astrologer directly, I can be reached at publisher at the 5 principles of organized complexity.com, as one word. Publisher at the 5 principles of organized complexity.com. I can also be reached by phone. I can be reached on my mobile, +41 76798 6476. +41 76798 6476. +41 76798 6476. Okay, or you can send a WhatsApp to that number, and I will respond.